Hello. Can you hear me? Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Nice. Clear. Very good. Hey, how's it going? It's Atsu. So today I just wanted to do a random live stream. What's up? Nothing. Not much. Good eye, mate. Hey, good eye. So today I just want to do this live only in English. So whenever you have questions, you can shoot any type of questions in English. It's completely up to me which questions I pick, but I answer as many questions as possible in English. So I'm going to do this live for like 30 minutes or so. So I don't have plenty of time, unfortunately, today, but I just wanted to kind of kill half an hour or so doing live, and hopefully I can give you back something by utilizing this time. So yeah, like whenever I do a live, I get a few comments saying, why don't you speak English while doing a live? So today I just want to do this only in English. Is it good to ask a question in English? Yes, please ask me a question in English. Are you interested in translation as a job? No, not at all. Because it doesn't really have to be me, right? I want to focus on something that only I can do. So yes, I'm not gonna be a translator in my future. And what is today's theme? Well, it's really random. So I just felt like speaking English, and I had just finished Cambly, and I was like, I might as well set a live because I still want to keep speaking in English. And if anybody wants to, get exposed to English today, then you might as well join this live and ask me questions in English so that you can kind of switch on your English brain, even though you may not be really speaking verbally, but you can just type it up and, switch on your English brain to dive into the world of English. How was your day? Well, I've been pretty cooped up. I haven't really gone outside. I just made some coffee and enjoying work. And I'm kind of taking a break of 30 minutes doing this live. Do you want to study other language? Yes, I'd love to. When I was at uni, I studied Chinese for like 2 years or so, maybe about a year. Actually, 1 year. I don't really exactly remember, but that was only for the exam. So I can say only a few phrases and that's it. Like, very typical, right? But yeah, hopefully when I have time, maybe early next year, hopefully I can start learning Chinese again, so I can pick it up and kind of show off that I can say a bit more phrases in Chinese. Why do Japanese people use lots of English vocabulary in katakana? I have no idea. How was your day? Do you want to study? I've read that. How should I start reading difficult article in English? You should go to Atsueigo.com where I explained in detail how to prep yourself for reading and ramp up your reading ability. So Atsueigo.com will be your go-to in that case. So what do you think about being an expat? Well, if that's something that you want to do, then that's fine. I don't have any specific opinion on that. Have you had dinner yet? Not yet. I'm listening to this YouTube channel as a radio. Okay. Have you ever felt tired when you speak English? Maybe, I don't know. Probably when I'm tired, I'm more likely to speak in Japanese because it's much easier. But it's not like speaking English makes me tired, just because being tired, Japanese just comes first because it's my first language. How do you think that taking a year off from university to study English and others. Yeah, that's completely fine. It's just 1 year. You live like 100 years nowadays, and 1 year is just a fraction of it. So why not? I think what's really important is you focus on what you love doing and what you really want to do. So that's how you should spend your time, like rather than what sort of looks you get from people. How often do I have a haircut? Every month. Why do many Japanese people fail to spell words correctly? Well, first of all, I don't think spelling is that important, especially now that, we normally type it on a keyboard, on a laptop, or on a smartphone, or some other devices. So I don't really see the point of focusing on spelling in the first place. So I don't think it's a problem, but anyway. What do you think about Christmas? I'm not a kind of person who celebrates Christmas, so I don't have any specific feeling for it. What company is the beverage? It's just rubbish. Do you have any plans for Christmas? Not really. When did you realize your English? My English is not a native level. Like I can't emphasize enough that my English is not native. Okay, I can't emphasize enough. It's just that people just misunderstand that my English is like native level, but I can clearly see that my English is different from English the native speakers speak. Okay, so it's very advanced. I would say my English is advanced, but it's not native. And these days, I study English for TOEIC. However, when I start studying, I usually feel sleepy. In order to feel sleepy when you study, what will you do? Drink coffee or have enough sleep? If you don't have enough sleep, it's normal that you feel sleepy. So have enough sleep and then drink a good amount of coffee to keep you awake while studying. And also, loving studying is also important because if you're doing something that you don't want to do, then obviously that's really boring to you, meaning that there's more likelihood that you get sleepy. So I think that's also important to confirm as well, like whether or not you are actually doing what you love doing. And I started casually watching your YouTube. Okay, that's good. I'm just curious, but is there any difference of speaking volume between Japanese and English? I don't know. Some people say, English sounds a bit louder, but I think it's just a personality thing, right? Maybe Westerners tend to speak a bit louder. I don't know. Is it a good way to learn English pronunciation by watching foreign YouTubers? Yeah, definitely. Especially when there's subs. It's really good. Like whenever you don't understand what the person is saying, you can just stop and check out the subs and write down the phrases that you didn't know or you had never come across or something like that, and then you memorize and then you listen to it again, and then you realize that now you can understand it because you now know the phrase that you couldn't pick. So you just need to go through that PDCA cycle again and again and again. Like why I don't understand. That's the first thing that you have to understand, right? Like why did I not get that phrase? Maybe one reason could be that you didn't know the phrase. The second reason could be that, well, you knew the phrase, but you got the pronunciation wrong in your head, or it was just because the sound changed a little bit, or because of a strong accent, or you just need to be able to analyze it yourself without really having to ask anyone why you didn't get it. And then you identify the issue, and then you come up with a solution to it, and then you apply the solution to it, and then you grow. So that kind of PDCA cycle should be built in your English studies. Sorry, I'm kind of sidetracking a little bit, but anyway. Why do I sleep in the morning? Just because my biological clock is set that way. Different people have different biological clocks, and also I don't really have a need for, waking up in the morning. I don't really have to wake up in the morning because I don't work for a company now. So I just need to follow like naturally my biological clock. When I feel sleepy, I go to bed. When I feel waking up, I wake up. When I feel like working, I work. Like I'm just letting my body decide what to do and when to do. I often go to Starbucks as a for sale place. Yeah, that was my go-to when I was a uni student. Anything you want to rant about now for whatever? Not really. Mm-mm. Have you ever been to Adelaide? I like your hairstyle today. Thanks. I haven't really applied anything on my hair today because I haven't cooped up like I said, but we finally got lifted restrictions in Melbourne. Okay, do you want to be ripped? What? Not really. Don't need to be ripped. Which exam do you recommend to take? You don't really have to take the exam, but you could take like Eiken Jinkyu or something like that, depending upon your level. Mm-mm-mm. Uh, are there any good foreign book in English for students? I don't know. Maybe after making some level of foundation of English, then I think you can move on to the next phase where you learn something in English, like rather than actually learning English itself. So, for instance, if your major is commerce, then you could choose a book in English, like relating to your major, like commerce, like marketing, management, that kind of stuff, and then you could go through it like all in English, and that's a good way to really actually put your all your knowledge that you learned in the first phase of learning English into practice, right? So I think that's something that you could try doing. It's said that taking caffeine will be a bad influence on sleep. Okay, I'm completely immune to caffeine now, so it doesn't affect at all. It's said that okay, I have the my midterm exam tomorrow. Okay, good luck. Do you have siblings? Yes, I have a little brother. Um, don't you sometimes forget correct grammar when speaking? Yes, I'm not really conscious of grammar when I'm speaking. I'm not really thinking about like grammar. I'm not really mindful of not making any grammatical mistakes when I'm speaking. It's just like naturally coming out. And there are some slips here and there, I think, but I notice it like after saying, oh shit, like why did I say that? Like I often notice when there is a slip, but yeah. So I'm kind of, on that level where there is no like grammatical thing happening in my head now that I practice so much. It's become very unconscious. But I had to put in a lot of conscious effort to bring that consciousness into the unconscious zone. So I think that's what everybody has to do. But yeah, but my conclusion, as in my answer, my response to that question is, yes, I make grammatical mistakes here and there sometimes, but it's just a sleep. Like when I'm like, when I'm on a flow, like when I'm just naturally speaking, like in one direction, like people don't really notice that tiny grammatical mistake. It's so I'd rather not, correct a grammatical mistake when I make one. And do you know the language learning app called HelloTalk? No, and I've never. I rarely use apps to study English, but anyway, no, not really. HelloTalk. Maybe I might have heard of it, but I don't know what kind of app that is. When do you think this pandemic will be over? I have no idea. I need a crystal ball for it. Why don't you, or what? Why don't you? No. By the way, okay, no. What expression do you learn? What expression? quicksand, like quicksand. What accent is your favorite? My favorite accent is British and Australian. I like Brit and Australian. Consciousness. Consciousness. Interesting. I also make pronunciation mistake like consciousness. But it's just a tiny slip, and that kind of tiny mistake even happens, with native speakers. So I don't think it's a, major issue. But it's a little bit off topic. But last time I was doing a live with Yoko-san, we were saying that, or I was saying that, when I'm really tired or like when I'm sleepy, my English tends to get a little bit messed up. And whenever I find that my English is a little bit messed up in any way, like grammatically or pronunciation wise or in any way, I feel like, that's the moment when I really realize that English is actually my second language, because, well, I don't think it often happens when I speak Japanese, even when I'm tired. Like it doesn't really get messed up. It's okay for me. Like I can still communicate without really sounding weird. But I think when it comes to English, that happens. So that's the moment when I realize that English is my second language. But having said that, it may be just because when I'm speaking Japanese, I've never actually paid extra attention to my Japanese, right? So that may be because I just don't have a sense, I'm not really sensitive to any mistakes that I make in Japanese. So that may be why, I don't even know what are mistakes when I'm speaking Japanese, right? Because Japanese is my mother tongue. It was not kind of naturally, it naturally grew within myself. So I don't really have the ability to spot any mistakes when I'm speaking Japanese. That may be why even when I'm tired, I feel like I'm not making any mistakes, but it may be different from how I normally speak. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. And sorry, I've ignored so many messages so far, but cannot be helped. It's so fast. Happy to see you. Thank you. And hi, could you introduce the most interesting book that you recently read? I don't normally read books, first of all. The only books that I read every day is Distinction. So that's it. What is the best way to improve English skills? I posted so many videos, I posted so many articles, so just go through them and you find out. How many percent do you think you can express out of what you can express in Japanese? Good question. And a difficult question too. Like, there should be some topics that I've never talked about in English, and that must be where I find myself struggling to express in English. Because like I grew up in Japan, I was born here. In 22 years I spent here, so of course, I experienced so many different types of situations here and there, like taking a bath, taking a shower, hanging out with my friends, going to arcade to play some games. I've done so many things in my life where Japanese was spoken, whereas when it comes to English, I learned it from textbooks, and then I immersed myself in English speaking environment. But that doesn't mean that I had come across as many situations as I did in Japanese. So those situations, it's a little bit hard to identify like which specific ones are the ones that I haven't actually experienced in English, but surely there are some areas where I would struggle. I don't know what that is really, but for instance, cooking, potentially, because I don't normally cook. But when I was a kid, as a kid, I watched some like cooking TV programs, like unconsciously, right? Because I was like passively watching TV, and here and there are cooking programs, and probably I learned some like technical phrases like mijingiri, like all those technical ways of describing things in that area of cooking. Whereas I don't really watch those programs anymore in English, and I didn't have that chance in English, so that may be an area where I might struggle. Anyway, life goes on. Yes. And do you think it's necessary to put emphasis on listening to English non-native speakers speak? I have sometimes difficulty understanding what they mean. Do you think it's necessary to put emphasis on listening to English? Yeah, that is also a skill, right? So now that the world is so global, that being able to understand people who speak English as a non-native speaker also important, I think, because let's say I was working for an accounting firm in Australia, and here and there I had a chance to work with a non-native speaker, like Malaysian. They're like semi-native kind of, but they have a really like particularly strong accent, Malaysian, and I really struggled. But I thought that was opportunity to learn and also get myself more adapted to a different layer of English, and that's definitely a nice to have skill now that the world is so globalized, and if you want to mingle together, and that's a nice to have or must have skill. So it's important to understand the features of a particular English that you struggle to understand, I think. I have too much assignments this year, especially. How did you deal with that problem? I don't remember having so many assignments when I was a undergraduate, but as a postgrad, I had so many assignments. So that's why I had to study like 13, 14, 15 hours a day. There was a lot of work, and that gave me a lot of stress. Pressure is always on, but I learned a lot. So obviously there was a big trade-off between them, but no regrets. And so I think that's the only way. I don't think there is a way that you can really, finish all the assignments within 3 hours, or, taking 3 hours every day. You really have to spend a large amount of time to finish a large amount of things. So maybe that would be the only solution. On this are written in English, and they are great. Yes, it's good. Do you plan to go back to Aussie? Yes, I had a plan to go back this June, but it's got cancelled because of COVID. Do you think it's necessary to go to a graduate school to get a job in foreign countries? No, I don't think so. But what I can tell you is, at least for instance, Deloitte. So when I got into Deloitte, I didn't have any Japanese colleagues, but after like 3 to 4 years, I had 2 Japanese colleagues, and they were both graduates from Australian universities. One was a Japanese who went to Japanese university and then went to a graduate school in Australia and then got into Deloitte. Another person went to high school in Australia and went to university in Australia. So I've never seen anyone, like any Japanese who was working for Deloitte, who had no educational background in Australia. So I think having an educational background in Australia is pretty good. It's a pretty good, nice to have when it comes to getting a job in Australia, I feel like. Because if I were an employer, right, I would feel relieved if you had, that like tertiary education background in Australia, because that, the flip side of it is like you've already had a chance to expose yourself to Australian culture and kind of understand how things work in Australia. Like I don't want to, spend extra time to take care of it. So I think it's a really good, nice to have. It's not a must have, but it's nice to have, I think. You have MBA? No. And it goes without saying that he is also financially independent. Yes, I am. And I'm not thinking of touching on third language. So like I said, I'm interested in learning Chinese. I haven't really started yet, but I'd love to experiment with myself how much I would be able to speak Chinese within 1 month or so. So that's what I want to experiment with myself, say at the end of this year or early next year. I was going to do this much earlier, but I just didn't have time to, it took some time for me to settle everything that I had to settle to make an environment where I can live my life comfy. So, which part of Australia were you in? Okay, I was in Melbourne. And do you think singing English songs is a good way to learn English? I think so, as long as you understand the lyrics. If you don't understand the lyrics, then maybe not. Okay. So what did you do when you were learning English to improve your intonation? My teacher keeps saying that the way I speak is monotonous. That's a little tough, right? I didn't really learn intonation, and I'm not even sure if my intonation's right. And what's that correct intonation? Is there a correct intonation in the first place? I have no idea. However, I've just, exposed myself to many types of English as much as possible, and I kind of gradually picked it up. So I'm not sure if my intonation is spot on. Maybe Japanese or kind of monotonous sometimes, but it's like mimicking, kind of miming how people speak, right? You get the rhythm, you try to get the rhythm, and there is a certain flow, rhythm, cadence in each individual language. Japanese has its own tone, people say like Japanese doesn't have a tone, but it definitely does have a tone, right? Like Chinese, like ame and ame, they are different, right? 今勉強中, like they're different. So there is definitely a tone. And that's kind of rhythm. I think you have to kind of consciously try to pick and listen to as much English as possible. I think that's the only way. There may be a textbook or something that's specifically geared towards those who want to be, who want to absorb intonation of a particular English, but I don't have any knowledge about that, so you might have to look it up yourself. How did you keep your motivation of English up when you are a beginner? So interestingly, I had this like invisible motivation coming from nowhere that I really wanted to drive myself really hard to, to grasp this language. That was very weird, but I just loved it. I just loved the language. But if you don't like the language, then yeah, there might have to be a different approach to it. So these days, I've been thinking that there may need to be a different approach to someone who is learning English just because they want to learn English, not really because that they love it. And I'm a kind of person who kind of got into it and loved it. But for somebody who's just learning it just because, maybe one like additional layer that they have to insert at the bottom of their English journey, like when they're structuring the journey, is to at least get to a level where they can kind of pretend that they can speak English. So for instance, I often say, okay, start with grammar and then learn as much vocabulary as possible. And also, smash the pronunciation knowledge because it's got a limited amount of time. That's what I often say. And that's exactly what I did. And that's how I got to this level. But for somebody who doesn't have like much motivation, I think it's really critical to at least have the feeling that you can in some way speak English. So by just memorizing some phrases and like learning really good pronunciation from native speakers, and just certain phrases, just memorize 50 phrases, and have that feeling that you can speak English, and I think being able to pretend kind of gives you motivation. So these days I've started to feel like it's important to have that really thin layer before and getting onto that really thick, building phase of foundation of grammar, vocabulary and stuff. But anyway, so I tend to sidetrack and sometimes I don't even understand what I'm saying. But anyway, hopefully you guys kind of get something out of this. Hi, how's it going? Ivan in Melbourne. I'm glad to hear Andrew's announcement because from tomorrow the hard lockdown will be eased in Melbourne. Do you think the restriction in COVID COVID-19 in Japan? What do I think about the restriction or what? But anyway, yeah, I'm really glad that it's easing. It was a really hard lockdown, wasn't it? Like there was a curfew and I don't know, the number of people that you can hang out with. There's so many restrictions in Melbourne. It almost felt like they were overreacting, but that was for the purpose of protecting people's lives. So yeah, it's a trade-off, right? Like economic damage versus people's lives and especially now that there is so much that we don't know about it, it's very hard to, take the right action. So they were, I think, being very conservative. What do I need to do in order to jump in a group conversation? The thing is I can have a normal conversation with social level, but when it comes to the group conversation, I can't afford to join. Yeah, it's hard, right? Group conversation, because people just keep talking and there is no room that you can get in. So one piece of advice that I can give you is, of course, I had like a lot of group discussions and like group discussions, for instance, as part of training that I was taking at Deloitte. So for instance, at Deloitte, like every 3 months you have training. So training is like kind of kenshu, like professional training. So you go there and you sit at a round table and you have your team and you do presentation, you discuss certain topics and, you do all those kinds of stuff. And in a group discussion, yes, they are really good at talking and they keep talking and there is no wiggle room for us to get in really once they start talking. So what I always made it a rule to do was I speak first, right? And if I'm quiet from the beginning to the end, then they would consider me as like nothing, right? So I just disappear into thin air and I don't want it to happen. So what I do is to kind of position myself as a valuable being at the round table. What I always did was, I always raise my hand. Well, you don't really have to actually raise your hand, but like you being the first person to talk, like open up that conversation or discussion, that really helped me to be a valuable part of it and also to give an impression that I'm in. And yeah, so I understand. I think this is a culture thing, but I know that, Japanese, especially maybe Asian people tend to struggle when it comes to group conversation because there is no culture to really, let people speak, for instance, in a discussion, like they just, keep talking and talking and talking. And it's really hard for somebody like me, like who grew up in this, in an Asian country to get in, like when that's already on. So be the first person to talk. It's a kind of piece of advice I can give you, I think. Do you eat snacks even midnight? I don't really eat snacks usually. I'm gonna finish this maybe in like 5 minutes or so. And an interesting idea that Cambly proposed the other day when we had a meetup was I become a Cambly tutor for just one day only, like limited, or for a limited number of sessions. So that could be very interesting, right? I become Cambly tutor, even though I'm a native speaker. So I was like, oh, I thought like, having native speakers on your, on your platform was your selling point, but is it really okay for me to be a Cambly tutor? But yeah, they came up with that idea and I was like, yeah, like making a video out of it, like talking to people in English on the Cambly platform might be an interesting thing to do if it's only for one day. I'm not gonna be a like permanent Cambly tutor, of course, but could be an interesting thing to watch. Okay. So yeah, that's interesting, right? Sounds great. Yay. Can you? Yeah. But for only, well, I'm gonna have only a limited number of slots, so maybe for 5 people. I don't know how people are gonna book me on Cambly, but when time comes, yeah, I announce it maybe on Twitter saying that, hey, only for this particular date, I'll be a Cambly tutor. Why don't you join? So, how do you pronounce R sounds? Unfortunately, I've already been used to pronounce R incorrectly. I don't know. I rarely pronounce R because I'm so used to like British slash Australian. Like, so I don't know. I'm not really good at pronouncing R in the first place. R, 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 like red, car, car. There isn't much R in most of my words. Sometimes R comes out just because there is a trace of what I base my pronunciation on, which was American accent training that I did when I was a uni student. But most of the time, I think now I don't have strong R. So, what if, okay, so sometimes so this question, what if you have a word you don't understand in a conversation? So yes, sometimes I have some words that I don't understand when I'm talking to someone, like, like what does that even mean? But without knowing that, if I can understand the core message of the conversation, then I wouldn't even ask what that means really, because I don't want to stop the flow of a conversation. But like if it seems to be it seems to be playing a very important role in the message, then I'll definitely ask that person. So that's how I communicate. Like whenever I come across something that I don't know, and if I find it very important, I ask about it. Like, hey, sorry, well, what is XYZ? Like there may be some word that I don't know. I'm gonna go look for a word that I don't know around here, but I don't have any. Yeah. But yeah, like whenever I have this kind of word, I definitely ask if it sounds important. How many besties do you have? How many besties? Good question. Maybe a couple. How should I practice pronunciation? I'm not really good at pronouncing words, I think. My pronunciation is not as good, maybe compared to other people who are good at speaking English. So maybe ask them how they practice pronunciation. But to me, like personally, pronunciation it starts with phonetics, and then you learn some like rules of sound changing, disappearing, or appearing, like all those rules. And there is a systematic rule behind it, like most of the case. So for instance, American accent training, this is a book that I use, so I often recommend this, but you can kind of skim through this to have systematic knowledge about how sounds change, and then you can just implement that in the process of actually you're speaking English. So on the platform like Cambly, or when you're actually having a FaceTime with someone, you can just install that knowledge into practice. So that's how I learned pronunciation. But again, my pronunciation is not as good. It's understandable, and when I talk to a native speaker, they say like, well, it's very clear, understandable completely, kind of international, but I don't know. I'm not super confident about my pronunciation, so maybe it's good to ask somebody else as well to get my second, third opinion. It's a present for you. Thank you so much. And how did you practice English intonation? Like I said, right, like 10 minutes ago, I kind of naturally picked it up, I think. How to pronounce herb? It's herb. I would say herb, but is it herb or herb? I always get confused. Is it herb or herb? I would say herb. Definitely herb. But which is British? Herb. Yeah, there's so many words that I get confused. Herb. I think some of my words are pronounced American and some words are pronounced British and some words are like Australian. Like I would say leisure instead of leisure. Maybe leisure. Sometimes leisure, maybe. But leisure sounds okay to me as well. Leisure. Weird. Give me the answer. It's a herb or herb? In American English, it must be herb. Okay, so is mine British? Do you have any favorite routines? Making coffee. I want to know how to pronounce TH sound and differences R and L sounds. There must be so many videos that you can watch on YouTube. I think Brits drop H of herb. Okay. There seems to be work. Are you gonna post this on YouTube after this? I might as well, right? What do you think? Southern and thousand. I used to pronounce, like when I was a uni student, southern, but it's southern, right? Like southern, thousand, like because it's south. Now, why is it not southern? That's what I thought when I was a uni, but like somebody pointed out and said, "Hey, not southern, it's southern," and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's weird because you guys say south, but not southern. Like, why?" Australia. You can just say Australia, I think. Australia, like with no L. Okay, so it's quite hard for me to talk with people who speak English with tons of slangs all the time. Yeah, I struggle as well. Maybe the only solution is you learn slangs. That's it. Because without knowing them, then there's no way you can understand them. So I think learning the slangs is it's gonna be the only solution. Work. Like how the American people pronounce work. Work is work, isn't it? Yeah. Months. I wouldn't say months because that's so hard. So I just say months. I don't even bite the tip of my tongue. What's the difference between put your best foot forward and put in the hard yards? But putting the hard yards is to make a lot of effort, pretty much. But put your best foot forward is like do your best. Do you exercise? Yeah, I go to the gym these days. What's your favorite food? I eat everything, pretty much. How do you pronounce enjoy? Enjoy. Thank you. What would you recommend doing after scoring 110 plus on TOEFL? Just do whatever you like. I think you must know your weaknesses, right? So your weaknesses might be to discuss or might be to have a like daily conversation. I don't know, but just identify your weaknesses and work on them. You like English? I like English too. Good. I like English too. How would people in Australia pronounce advertisement? Just wondering. I would say advertisement. Advertisement. Some people, I think British pronunciation for you is advertisement, right? But I say advertisement. Servo, ne? But I don't really drive a car, so they don't have many opportunities to use that word. But yes, I've heard of servo so many times. What is that difference between learn and takeaway? Takeaway is like after finishing the session, finishing a workshop. So what are the main takeaways? Like takeaways is like the main points that you learned. So takeaways are the main points. Okay. How can I pronounce schedule? Schedule. I put it on the schedule. Schedule. I would say schedule. I used to say schedule, I think, but now I say schedule. I don't know why, but now I say schedule. 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 And is my pronunciation correct? Schedule. 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 Envelope. L sound is difficult for me. Yeah, a little tough, isn't it? But there are a bunch of videos that explain like dark L and the other one very clearly, like on YouTube. So you can find a lot of good videos to learn from. Can you tell the difference between GER sounds like finger and singer? Finger, singer. They are the same, aren't they? Like when it comes to GR, are they different? Do I have AirPods? Yes, I do. It's the same pronunciation between lava and lava. No, I don't think so. Lava is like lava, but lava is like lava, right? Okay. Vegemite. Yes, I've tried Vegemite. Yes, and I love it. It tastes really beautiful when you apply Vegemite on top of butter, like a thin layer of butter, and it tastes amazing. And with cheese, and if you add cheese, that's just beyond description. Really good. Yo, funny with these pronunciation questions. Yeah, it's an interesting area of like people speaking English with different pronunciation. It's an interesting area. I'm curious as well. I can't pronounce the neighborhood. Neighborhood. Ne? Hood. No. You. Hood's you is like this you, right? It comes from here. A neighborhood. Hood. Neighborhood. Yeah, I've been pointed out. I've been pointed out. Like somebody has pointed out, like when I pronounce the word neighborhood, and I tend to say neighborhood, but it's not hood, it's hood. I guess it comes from a deeper part of your throat. Yeah, that's what I learned from one of my tutors on Cambly. But anyway, we are kind of running out of time. We've been on this live for like 50 minutes. I really appreciate you guys making comments all in English. I really appreciate all your effort, and it's really great. Keep it up, and I keep it up as well. So thank you very much for coming to my live today, and I catch you guys later some way, somehow. Okay, bye-bye.